Hello, this is Alex, and I have a variety of recently completed units to show to you today. First, I'll cover each of the three sets of units, and then I'll discuss basing difficulties I've run into and some assembly line kit bashing that I've been doing with the scalpel. So let's show you the Premier unit first. This is a unit of Triari, which I just completed. So these rich old boys here, these are Roman Triari, my first Roman unit. And I went for some golden shine on the helmets, as you might see here, especially up close. And also went with some intricate and diverse shield transfers from Little Big Man Studio. And also generally went for some color diversity on the tunics and of course on the shields as well. So if you want to compare this unit here with my Carthaginian veterans, you can see some of the slight differences in terms of how I colored the units. Of course, it's a little subtle though. So I did pretty consistent tunic color here for the Carthaginian veterans, but I did rank them up the exact same way. And of course, the basing material is probably the biggest glaring difference between the two units. So the Triari here, these are 28mm Victrix and Agema figures. And I used multiple kits from each, which I'll explain a little bit more later. And I placed all these figures on a single base in 3 ranks of 9 men. So that's 27 total. And that's a typical size for my multi-based infantry units. Now let me talk about the method. So I made 2 key decisions when I put this unit together. I think the biggest decision I made for these men was the helmet color, and the second biggest was the shield diversity. So first, the helmets. Well, I mean, you'll see from the front that pretty much all you can see are the helmets, the faces, the feathers, and the shields. So for the helmets, I went away from my typical bronze look here, as you can see with my Carthaginian veterans, which looks good and it's nice and faded, but I really wanted to go for something a bit richer looking with these guys here. So, these men are not the richest of the Romans, but they're still rich landowners who would have had time to take care of their equipment. And, as opposed to, say, Hannibal's veterans who were on perpetual campaign being hounded by the Romans constantly. So this was a mass scale experiment for me. So I think it turned out pretty well. Maybe next time I'd kind of underdo the gold a little bit, just make it a little bit of a lighter highlight. But it still does communicate the character that I was going for here with these units. The second big decision I made was on the shield transfers. So these are from Little Big Man Studio, and perusing their site, it seems to me that people are encouraged to use uniform designs for their Romans, and I didn't really want to do that here, at least not for these Triari. I didn't want these plebeian era Romans to look very conspicuous on the battlefield compared to the rest of the units I've made that have diverse shield designs. So I'm thinking that just like the Carthaginian veterans I did, each individual is going to be designing their own shield and what they want it to look like, almost like it's a type of heraldry. However, you notice in the center, I still have this shield conspicuously repeated with the blue and the gold wreaths. And I'm just imagining that these guys are fulfilling official duties for this group of soldiers, maniple perhaps. And it also, if you make those guys have the same shields, it can nicely visually centers the unit. That's nice. So this is a 100% shield transferred unit. Every shield here has a shield transfer on it, which is a lot of work, but I'm not quite ready to hand paint all these shields yet. Maybe the next Roman line unit, I'll try it out. Another moderately significant decision I made with this unit has to do with the feathers. So you'll see that almost every single man here has 3 feathers on the crest of their helmet. and that comes straight from Polybius. I'll use it to make the Romans stand out, especially the line infantry. I think it's nice. I don't know, maybe they're like goose or eagle feathers or something. I have no idea. All right, let's talk about the character of the Triari unit. So these figures represent the final heavy infantry line in the so-called Polybian Legion, and it's called that because Polybius described the Roman military in this time period in unparalleled detail, and he's thought to be a pretty reliable ancient historian. The male, or the Lorica Hamada, is on most of these men, and that'll date this unit to about the Second Punic War or later. I also used bronze cuirasses on a lot of these guys as well. So they either have nice breastplate or full mail. Additionally, they are all spear armed with a rather heavy looking Roman shield, the scutum, which they're holding right now in anticipation of contact. So Polybius states that these men fought without javelins, these Triari, but I'm rather doubtful that they always fought in close order with a spear and no javelins. They're soldiers, war is not predictable, and these are supposed to be very experienced, if older soldiers, that might have to participate in a shock action and perhaps use a pilum. The Roman system was flexible. So, for example, Livy says that at the Battle of Zama, which is the climactic battle of the Second Punic War, when Hannibal was defeated on African soil, the Triari were committed to the main Roman battle line just as the real fight was beginning. Just in addition to the Stadi and the Principes, they all made up the main battle line. And so they weren't simply being used as a reliable reserve. So, even though Polybius does state that the Triari did not fight with a javelin, he also says they fought as a final reserve for the legion. So that's clearly not always true. And in fact, it was apparently not true of the most important battle of the age, where we actually know what the Triari were doing. So I think this is just a case where you have a historian who's generalizing in the classic fashion of an ancient historian. Kind of like how he said Gaulish swords were rubbish and inferior to Roman swords, or he also said that the Carthaginians neglected their infantry but paid close attention to their cavalry. It's just these just-so stories, things you probably shouldn't take too literally as a hard rule, but I don't doubt that the Triari were typically used as a reserve, and I still arm them as such. I did enough unusual things with this unit already, so. All right, let me show you my next group of units. I have some Keltoi, got some Gauls, some new Slingers, some new Bowmen, more Slingers, more Bowmen, and some Javelinmen as well. The back. So I'm quite pleased with how these turned out. Just some simple multi-based Celtic javelin and archers and slingers. And I used the Dark Age kit. So these are Dark Age Celts, technically. I just used the Dark Age Archers kit, which also has some slingers from Victrix. And I selected the most Gaulish-looking bodies, and I put some heads on them. Some Gallic heads, of course. So the mustached heads, make them Gauls. That's what makes a Gaul. An outrageous mustache, as you can see with all three of these guys here. Also, notice the ridiculous swept back hair. Another dead giveaway, he's a Gaul. So thanks to a recent commenter, I found out that they should have much wider hair when using this hair product that makes their hair look swept back like that. It would actually bleach their hair, the lime water. So this guy in the center is just using it today for the first time. That's why his hair is still nice and dark. Anyway, not too much to say about these guys. I was very aggressive here on the basing and the foliage, just experimenting here with different colors. Onto their character. So these men are not high enough status to stand stoutly shield to shield within a warband, such as the one right here. So, you know, were they cowards? The men of the warband probably thought so, and so do I. I didn't really give them any shields or much hand weapons to fight with, so when the going gets tough and the enemy gets too close, these guys are going to bug out for sure. Now, let me show you my next Roman unit, the Velites, or Velites? Not 100% sure how to pronounce that. And where are they? Oh, here they are. There, just one completed right now. These men are assuredly not cowards. So they fight between the lines as a fast, flexible, and aggressive infantry force. And the bravest of them put themselves into harm's way to conspicuously show off their bravery. Livy famously mentions that the Macedonians of this time period were intimidated by the terrible wounds that were inflicted on them by the Romans when they clashed with some Velites. And the Velites were probably using an earlier version of the famous gladius. Now, I only have this one unit down right now. I really wanted to finish a unit holding this guy because I really love this guy's pose here. Such a nice aggressive pose, but this is still work in progress. So, you know, if you're curious about this theory of this uber aggressive Velites, I recommend that you read Soldiers and Ghosts by J.E. Lendon. It discusses the motivation and warrior ethos of the Romans and the ancient Greeks and how their martial culture differed. This was originally recommended to me by Triari's Wargaming, another YouTube channel who I've talked about before. And it was a great recommendation. The book was fantastic, great read. I very much enjoyed it. Professor Brett Devereaux also mentions the book time and time again. And you know, it's a great explanation of the Romans and how they fought and how we as modern people might think that ancient societies organized warfare according to their available technology in order to get as much of an advantage as possible. But that's a very modern concept, according to the author. And he argues that the way they fought actually had less to do about how effective it was and more to do about their martial tradition. Interesting book. Next, I'm going to talk about some basing difficulties. So let's return to the Triari. I had some basing difficulties here. Where's my Triari? Right there. So I was trying out a new basing paint, and I had a plan. I think it was a good one. As recommended by a commenter, I'd lay down the front line of troops, the first rank, apply the basing material in those hard to reach spots, you know, under the figure and between the figures, and then, you know, base those up and get the second line down, and then add the basing material, and then get the third line down, add the base material. You know, do it in stages so that you can fill in those hard to reach spots without overpainting too much and getting the figures all messed up. Well, the plan was good, the execution was bad, and the paint was unforgiving. I just didn't pay enough care and attention to what I was doing. I tried to do this during the weekend, this weekend. It was midday, the kids were around, and it was just not a good choice. So if you look very closely here, you will notice there's a lot of smeared paint near the ankles and the shield butts and on the thighs. And, well, the worst case is this guy here. You can see I'm imagining he fell down on the ground and got his back elbow all muddy, and his spear is all muddy too, because I can't get that paint off. So, I mean, I probably could if I tried a lot harder, but I'm done with that. So I think the plan definitely saved me some errors and accidental application of the basing paint. But you know, still I had some trouble here. Unlike the basing paints I've used in the past from Pro Acryl, the stuff that I used here from AK Interactive, this one, So the stuff I've been using lately is this Pro Acryl stuff, for example. And this is what I used on the Gauls. And this one here I tried to use on the Romans. And when you overpaint for the Pro Acryl, you can kind of dilute it with water and brush it off to account for those mistakes. That did not work very well at all with this AK interactive stuff. So now look. All right, now let's talk about something successful. The final topic I have for you is a triumphant one. So this Triari unit is significantly kitbashed, much more so than the Gauls that I just showed off, where I just put a head on a different body. So here for this kit, first off, I've used quite a bit of Agema parts and a few bodies as well, and they blend in pretty well with the Victrix stuff. Also used a couple of the Victrix Carthaginian veterans in here as well. They blend in just fine. But the biggest kitbash by far are the right arms for almost all of the remaining figures. So I wanted the men to have an overhand hoplite spear with a boss grip shield. And I wanted them, standing left shoulder forward, poised to fight. Right, so the typical Republican Roman kit, the old one from Victrix, like say this one here, the Italian Allied Legions, for instance, those poses aren't very accommodating for that. So in order to do that, I had to take I took quite a few of the overhand spear arms from the Greek hoplite kit, the new one. This one here from Victrix. And I took the bodies from the older Romans, such as this one right here. Let's see, can you get that? Yeah, get that focused. And I simply sliced at an angle here on the sleeve so that it would accommodate an overhand spear arm, and also would allow it to be pivoted a little bit off the left shoulder, kind of like this guy here on the right, for instance. See how he's turning and throwing his left shoulder forward. So I had to do a little bit of surgery on almost all of these guys in order to get that stance down to what I was looking for. I thought it turned out really well. I had moments of doubt, and it wasn't easy, but I kind of like the way it turned out. So let's get to the conclusion. So I think by now I've achieved enough of a critical mass of units to start thinking about wargaming with some of these figures. I have a few rule sets I'm going to try out, and yeah, maybe I'll talk about that more in my next video. At any rate, all right, well, thank you for watching.